The print is barely visible under the glass. A narrow spiral of black ink curves across a small Ethiopian manuscript page, surrounded by brown fibers, dry glue, and the faint shine of worn parchment. The page rests flat inside a climate-controlled archive. No gold frame, no dramatic artifact, just a sheet of animal skin, covered in gooey characters, carrying a claim about the human body that is far more precise than its age should allow. The Book of Enoch was excluded from the biblical canon used by most Christian traditions. Church authorities debated its status for centuries. By the 4th century, influential lists of accepted scripture left it outside the standard collection. The reason was not simple. Its visions, angelic records, heavenly journeys, and descriptions of hidden structures did not fit comfortably inside the boundaries being established. The decision became institutional. What was not accepted was copied less often. What was copied less often became harder to find. Then manuscripts preserved in Ethiopia kept the text alive. And that matters because one passage, read alongside the ancient descriptions of human identity, raises an unusual possibility. The text does not discuss modern forensic science. It does not use the language of biometrics, but it repeatedly describes marks, boundaries, records, and signs carried by the human body. The question is whether one of those ideas points towards something every person carries on their fingertips. Your fingerprints were never random. They record something about you that begins before anyone can identify you. In the next several minutes, you'll see what the text actually says, what evidence shows about the ancient understanding of bodily marks, and why the comparison with modern fingerprint science is more precise than it first appears. If ancient records hidden inside the history of Scripture fascinate you, hit subscribe. Every week, we uncover what was removed from Scripture, history, and the records that shaped both. But here's what makes this stranger. When researchers examine an individual fingerprint, they are not looking at a general human pattern. They are looking at a structure produced through development before birth, shaped by physical forces, and retained throughout life. The broad pattern can be classified. The small details can distinguish one person from another. A loop is not enough. A whorl is not enough. Investigators examine ridge endings, splits, islands, enclosures, and the precise relationship between them. That is a record. It is written on the body without ink. The ancient Enochic material comes from a very different world. The surviving Book of Enoch is a collection assembled from older traditions, preserved completely in Guizi and known through fragments in other ancient languages. Its sections were copied and transmitted across centuries. The Ethiopian tradition preserved a complete form, while other witnesses survived only in pieces. One of the most important facts is that the text was not discovered for the first time in the modern era. Its existence was already known through Ethiopian manuscripts. Later discoveries, especially among the Dead Sea Scrolls, confirmed that several Enochic writings circulated in antiquity. Aramaic fragments of Enoch were recovered from the Qumran caves, showing that parts of the work existed centuries before the Christian era. That changes the question. The issue is no longer whether a medieval copy somehow invented an ancient concept. We have evidence that Enochic traditions were circulating in the Second Temple period. And this is where it gets disturbing. What we're looking at breaks into 4 parts. Part 1 is identity. In the opening sections of the Enochic tradition, individuals are repeatedly distinguished by names, ranks, places, and assigned functions. Human beings are not treated as interchangeable units. They occupy positions inside an ordered creation. Part 2 is record. Enoch is shown heavenly records, books, tablets, and written accounts. The imagery is consistent, actions are preserved, names are known, events are registered. The universe is presented as an ordered system in which information can be retained beyond the moment in which an event occurs. Part 3 is marking. Throughout ancient religious language, a mark can signify ownership, distinction, protection, judgment, or identity. Enoch does not provide a modern fingerprint chart. It does, however, belong to a tradition in which the body and the individual can carry signs that have meaning beyond appearance. Part 4 is judgment. The text repeatedly connects human conduct with a record that can be examined. The central idea is not that skin is merely skin. The individual leaves evidence behind. That distinction matters. A fingerprint is not a written biography. It does not reveal your moral character. It does not contain a hidden sentence describing your future. What it does contain is a persistent biological pattern that can be used to distinguish one person from another. Modern science gives us a much clearer explanation of what actually forms those ridges. During fetal development, the skin on the fingertips develops patterns influenced by genetics and by conditions in the womb, including growth, pressure, and the changing environment around the developing hands. Even identical twins do not have identical fingerprints. Their genetic relationship is extremely close, but the fine ridge details differ. This is where the ancient claim should be handled carefully. There is no verified Enochic passage saying, "Every human being has a unique fingerprint." No responsible translation can honestly insert that sentence into the manuscript. But there is something else worth examining. The ancient writers were interested in a universe where identity was registered, where heavenly books contained information, and where individuals could be distinguished within a larger human population. Modern biology independently shows that every individual carries a highly persistent physical identifier on the fingertips. The two systems are not the same, but they point toward the same question: how much information can the human body carry without being written by another human hand? There is another point that deserves attention before moving any further. Fingerprint uniqueness is often described too casually. Saying that every fingerprint is unique does not mean that scientists have proven an absolute mathematical impossibility of two people ever sharing every microscopic detail. The practical meaning is more precise. The ridge characteristics observed in forensic examination are sufficiently individual and persistent to serve as a powerful identifier when properly collected and compared. That precision matters here, because the Enoch comparison becomes weaker when it is exaggerated. The ancient text does not need to contain a laboratory formula to be historically interesting. It only needs to preserve an idea about identity that can be compared with something we now understand biologically. The Enochic books repeatedly move between earthly observation and heavenly administration. There are records. There are watchers. There are appointed times. There are boundaries between kinds of beings. There are places assigned specific functions. There is a repeated assumption that creation operates according to an order that can be observed, measured, and recorded. The Book of the Heavenly Luminaries is especially important for understanding that mindset. Its descriptions of the sun, moon, stars, seasons, gates, and appointed times are not written as casual observations. They are arranged as a system. The universe is presented as structured. That same structural idea appears in the language of human identity. A person is not merely a body moving through space. A person has a name, a place, an action, and a record. The text assumes that these things can be known and preserved. Modern science arrives at a different kind of record. The fingertip does not tell a court what a person did. It cannot tell a historian why someone acted. It cannot reveal a person's thoughts. But if a print is left on an object, investigators can sometimes connect that physical trace to a particular individual. The body becomes evidence. That is a striking concept even without Enoch. Now consider when the fingerprint itself forms. The basic ridge patterns begin developing during fetal life. As the fingers grow, the skin folds into permanent configurations. Genetics influence the broad pattern, but local developmental conditions help determine the fine details. Tiny differences in pressure, growth, and position can affect the final arrangement. This means that the fingerprint is personal before personality develops, before language, before memory, before deliberate choices, before a child understands what a name is. The body has already produced a physical distinction. That fact gives new weight to the ancient language of being known and recorded. Not because the ancient author understood embryology. There is no evidence for that. But because modern observation shows that the human body contains information that exists before conscious identity is formed. And the information is remarkably durable. Cuts and burns can damage the surface temporarily, but ordinary skin renewal does not erase the underlying ridge structure. The pattern reappears because the deeper architecture remains. This is why fingerprints can remain useful for identification across decades. A person can change almost everything visible about themselves. Hair changes, weight changes, faces age, voices change, names can change. Fingerprints usually do not. That makes them an unusually stable biological signature. The ancient language of records also becomes interesting when viewed through this lens. A written record requires a medium. Something must hold the information. Stone can hold information. Parchment can hold information. Clay can hold information. Digital storage can hold information. And the human body can hold information. DNA stores biological instructions. The iris contains identifying structure. The face contains measurable geometry. The fingertip contains ridge patterns. None of these are mystical. They are physical. The mystery comes from how much information can exist in ordinary matter without looking like information at first glance. A fingerprint does not look like a database. It looks like a set of lines. But those lines can be transformed into measurable features and compared against another set of lines. That is the modern discovery. The ancient record does not give us the technology. It gives us a conceptual world in which marks, records, names, and distinctions matter. There is also a historical reason to be careful with the word confirmed. The Book of Enoch cannot scientifically confirm a fact discovered thousands of years later unless its wording independently predicts that fact with enough precision to be tested. A vague resemblance is not scientific confirmation, but the title of this investigation points to something slightly different. The text can confirm a way of thinking about the human person. It presents identity as something that can be known. It presents records as something that can preserve what happens. And it presents creation as ordered rather than arbitrary. Modern biology confirms that human individuality is physically expressed in stable structures that develop naturally. Those two observations can sit beside each other without pretending they are the same experiment. That is the stronger argument. It is also why the Qumran evidence matters so much. When fragments of Enochic literature were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, the manuscripts provided a physical bridge between later complete Ethiopian copies and much earlier Jewish textual traditions. The fragments did not suddenly reveal modern science. They did something more important historically. They demonstrated transmission. They showed that ideas associated with Enoch existed in antiquity. That means we are not simply looking at a late manuscript using modern concepts. We are dealing with a tradition whose roots reach back into the world of ancient Jewish literature. And that gives the language of records another layer. The ancient world depended on writing because memory alone was fragile. Lists were written. Genealogies were written. Laws were written. Names were written. Debts were written. Royal events were written. Religious instructions were written. Writing converted temporary knowledge into something that could survive the person who first spoke it. The Enochic tradition applies that principle on a cosmic scale. Books in heaven, tablets of record, names known beyond ordinary human observation, events preserved. The language is ancient, but the basic human concern is familiar. What happened? Who did it? When did it happen? How can it be remembered? Modern identification systems ask some of the same practical questions. Who was here? Which person produced this trace? Does this physical evidence match an existing record? Again, the methods are completely different, but the human problem is similar. Identity leaves evidence. There is another detail that makes fingerprints especially appropriate for this comparison. They are involuntary. A signature can be copied. A password can be forgotten. A photograph can be altered. A name can be changed. A fingerprint is difficult to voluntarily redesign. It exists on the body without requiring permission. That is why modern identification systems value it. And that is also why the ancient idea of a mark deserves careful attention. A mark that belongs to a person is different from a label someone else attaches to them. It is carried with the individual. The fingertip does not announce itself. You have to look. The same is true of the manuscript. The claim is not written in large letters across the page. It is embedded in repeated ideas: record, identity, order, distinction, preservation. The evidence becomes visible only when the pieces are placed beside one another. This is not proof that Enoch predicted fingerprint databases. It is evidence that an ancient text can preserve a concept that becomes unexpectedly concrete when viewed through modern knowledge. And once you see that, the fingertip stops looking ordinary. It becomes one of the smallest places on the human body where identity is physically expressed. Not in words, not in symbols, in structure. Here's what the translators left out. The detail most often lost in modern retellings is not a secret word for fingerprint. It is the broader language of inscription and record. When Enochic passages describe heavenly tablets and written testimony, The original conceptual world treats information as something that can be fixed, preserved, and examined. A modern reader may imagine books. An ancient reader could understand the same imagery as an ordered record of reality. That matters because the fingerprint comparison works only if we make the claim precisely. The text does not secretly name fingerprint ridges. It describes a world in which identity and action can leave a record. Your fingertip supplies one physical example of that principle. The suppression starts at the Council of Laodicea in the 4th century, where the canon lists associated with the council did not include Enoch among the books being recognized for ecclesiastical reading. The process did not end there. In later centuries, Enoch remained outside the biblical collections used by most Western churches. Manuscript transmission narrowed. Ethiopian Christianity preserved the text in a living tradition, while scholars elsewhere encountered it mainly through references, fragments, and later translations. Then came the age of rediscovery. European travelers and scholars encountered Ethiopian Enoch manuscripts. Translation work expanded. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the text became available to a much wider scholarly audience. The discovery of Aramaic Enoch fragments at Qumran later established that the tradition was genuinely ancient and not a medieval Ethiopian creation. The history is important because suppression is often imagined as a single secret meeting in which someone removes a forbidden page. The real history is usually quieter. A text is excluded from a canon. A tradition is copied less often. A language becomes inaccessible. A manuscript remains in a distant community. Generations pass. Then an excavation changes the evidence. That is what happened with Enoch. Now here's where it gets active. In recent scholarship, the active part is not a secret government laboratory hiding fingerprint evidence. The real conflict is over interpretation. Researchers continue to debate how Enochic text should be dated, divided, translated, and understood. Fragments can be damaged. Words can have multiple possible meanings. A damaged line can support more than one reconstruction. That is not evidence of a modern cover-up. It is evidence that ancient documents are difficult, and that distinction protects the argument from becoming something it cannot support. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying the Book of Enoch contains a scientifically accurate description of modern fingerprint identification or that ancient scribes possessed hidden forensic technology. But what the text describes, when you look at it carefully, matches a broader principle that modern biology makes visible. Human identity can be carried in physical structures that develop without conscious choice, remain stable for decades, and distinguish one individual from another. Think about your own hands. Before you had a name, before you learned language, before you made a decision that anyone could remember, those ridges were already forming. You did not choose them. You did not design them. You did not write them. And yet they became one of the most reliable physical signatures attached to your identity. Modern fingerprint science became practical only after centuries of observation, measurement, classification, and experimentation. Ancient writers had none of that technology. They could not scan a ridge pattern. They could not compare thousands of prints with digital databases. They could not calculate probabilities from automated matching systems. But they could observe something simpler. Every person has a body. Every person is distinguishable. Every person leaves traces, and records can preserve those distinctions. What we have to confront is the simplest explanation that fits the evidence. If the Enochic tradition repeatedly presents human identity as something known and recorded, if this tradition is demonstrably ancient through surviving fragments and manuscripts, if modern biology shows that individual identity is physically encoded in stable ridge patterns, and if those patterns form before conscious identity can even exist, then the most reasonable conclusion is not that Enoch secretly taught forensic science. The conclusion is smaller and more interesting. The ancient material is documenting a worldview in which identity is not accidental noise. It is ordered. It is distinguishable. It can leave a record. Your fingerprint gives that idea a physical form. Look closely at one fingertip and the scale of the thing becomes obvious. A few centimeters of skin contain thousands of tiny decisions made by development. Ridges rise. Valleys fall. Lines divide and reunite. Small features appear in arrangements that will remain recognizable for most of your life. There is no visible author. No signature at the bottom. No date. No name. Yet it belongs to you. That is why the comparison with Enoch should not depend on pretending that an ancient writer predicted modern laboratory equipment. The deeper connection is about records and identity. The ancient text places the human individual inside a universe where information is preserved. Modern science demonstrates that the human body itself can preserve identifying information. Different language, different method, same physical reality. And that brings us back to the manuscript page. The ink is still dark in the deepest grooves of the letters. The parchment is still dry beneath the glass. The page does not move. It does not explain itself. It simply remains, carrying words copied from a tradition that survived exclusion, distance, translation, and time. Your hand is carrying something too. Not a prophecy written in letters. Not a secret sentence. A pattern. It formed before you could remember anything. It remained while your face changed, your voice changed, your name changed, and your life accumulated experiences that no ancient scribe could have known. The manuscript is a record on parchment. Your fingertip is a record on skin. The page is still there, still preserving its marks, exactly as the manuscript tradition carried it forward. And your fingerprint is still there too, still carrying its pattern, exactly where it has been since before you ever knew what your own name meant.